Welcome to the Lambtown Virtual Sheep to Shawl. Your hosts and judges are myself, Kaye Luck,
and Luck.
And we're here to give you a few helpful tips and tricks on how to make your submission competition worthy. We'll start with San's favorite topic.
Sampling! You really do need to make samples and figure out two very important factors.
Draw in
and draw up. So you need to have gone through the weaving process and figure out when your weaving comes off the loom, is it going to draw in from the sides or
draw up in the length?
Either of which could disqualify you from the competition.
So it's best to start with a warp of a yard and a half, using the loom and the yarns that you're planning to use for the competition.
This is very important, particularly in hand-spun warps.
Once you have actually woven it off, cut it off the loom, measure it, length and width.
Let it relax.
Measure it again. And if you think you're going to have time to do some finish work, wet finish it and measure it a third time.
When it gets to us to judge, it will have rested for at least a week. So keep that in mind. We'll be looking at the length after it has relaxed, which means tightening up in the case of a weaving piece.
So your target is 19 inches wide and 72 inches long. If you aren't certain, over-spec it a little bit. It's better to be a little bit wider and a little bit longer than to be just that little bit too short and disqualify your entry.
And in this particular competition, there is no maximum. You just have so many hours in which you can work. So it absolutely can be wider and longer. There are other competitions where those are different. There are different rules.
So, as this is a virtual, your team can be comprised of somewhere between 2 and 7 people. If you do choose to work concurrently, which is to say everyone gathers in one spot, then you can have 4 spinners, 1 weaver, and 1 plier out of your maximum of 7 people. The other thing of note is that if you have to transfer your materials from one crafter to another, the shipping and postal time and all of that stuff does not count against your total time elapsed.
Your total time elapsed is based strictly on working time, but it does not include the warping of your loom.
Or in fact, the spinning of your warp thread, should you choose to have a hand-spun warp. So as your virtual parameter is 28 hours, spread between the members of your team, make sure that you document. Once that 28-hour mark has hit, you can do nothing else except cut it off the loom.
No more finish work, no hem stitching, no finishing, if those are not done before the 28-hour mark.
No fixing of errors, no trimmies, none of that stuff. Once you've cut it off the loom, you need to immediately take your first set of photographs. A full-length photograph. It would be nice to have a shot of the end,
the selvages and the fells.
And if you want to get really fancy, you can put it on a mannequin or drape it on one of your team members and take a shot there. If you do want to film it with a tape measure, you can do that as well.
And we will remeasure it when it arrives to us. So just to recap, your order of operation is sampling. And that means that if you're going with a hand-spun warp, you will have to have enough to also pull your sample and weave it off. Warping your loom for competition, and then at competition, in the competition hours, spinning and weaving.
Now, mind you, you can do a lot of spinning practice beforehand.
And we recommend, again, sample, 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 practice, practice, practice. Then our other tips and tricks Twist angle can be very important, so pay attention to that in your spinners. It can make a big difference in the finish of your fabric and could make a decision between someone who takes a place and who does not.
And if you are practicing together, see if you can actually get all of the people who will be on your spinning team to spin at a very similar twist angle, because that actually produces a much finer finished shawl.
Which comes back to sample and practice so that all your spinners are aiming for the same type of yarn.
And one small note on finishing: if you do decide to knot fringe, please make sure that you're knotting up against the selvage edge, but not pushing into the fell, and that you're using a smallish bundle so that you're not spreading your warp threads and distorting them.
If your knots are too big, there's too many threads in the knot, it can actually pull the warp apart in places and bunch other places up. So smaller bundles taking a bit longer, totally worth the final product.
And that's it from us. Hopefully you'll have excellent success in your spinning and your weaving and carding, and you'll do smashingly well in the competition. We look forward to seeing your shawls.
We can't wait to see how everything comes out. Get on weaving!